I was just playing around.
Well, we're playing now.
Maxine has hit theaters. This is the third in the Ty West trilogy that began with X and was continued with Pearl, which was actually a prequel to X, but now is concluded in the third installment starring Mia Goth, and that is Maxine. And I was super excited to check out this movie because if you saw my trailer creative breakdown, I was really fascinated by how they constructed the trailer. So much of what was shown in the trailer. I really enjoyed X. I thought Pearl was a really fun movie. I might not have put it number 2 in the trilogy release, but I thought it was entertaining nonetheless. So I was really curious to see what was going to happen in Maxine as Ty West was looking to close out this trilogy. So if you're new here, this is the first time we are doing a creative breakdown of an entire movie. I'm going to be going through and discussing the visuals and cinematography of the film. We're going to talk about the sound, the acting. We're going to talk about the directing, the editing, the story itself, and then just overall how entertaining is this movie. And for those that haven't seen the movie yet, this review will be spoiler free, so you're safe to watch this and not have anything ruined for you if you choose to go see the movie afterwards. If you're new to my channel, definitely hit the subscribe button, turn the bell notifications on. That really, really helps this channel. And if there are other movies you want me to review, feel free to put it in the comment section or send me a message. Would be happy to check out any additional movies for you. So let's first give a synopsis of what this film is. The film, Maxine, details the life of the main character, Maxine, in 1985. Now, this is a number of years after the events that happened in Texas in the film X. She is currently working as an adult film star in Los Angeles, and she's just getting her first big break to star in a mainstream major motion picture. Now, this is her opportunity to escape the adult film industry and to create real success and real fame, which is one of her primary drivers, if not her primary driver in her life, to be known, to be renowned. And she wants to do this as an actress. However, she's still very clearly struggling with the PTSD from the trauma she experienced in Texas during that first film, or the events of the first film. Now, this is presenting itself throughout this movie as flashbacks or even hallucinations. And to add to this mix, as all this is going on, this is taking place at the same time, congruently, as the real life events of the Nightstalker serial killer and his series of murders throughout that time frame. So let's now look at and kind of break down each of the categories I laid out to begin with. One is the visual, the cinematography. Visually, this film is stunning. It is beautifully shot. It creates this perfect encapsulation of the 1980s. And this is everything from the set design to the wardrobe and styling to the hair and makeup of the actors to the musical soundtrack. The color palette of this film was perfectly chosen, and it harkens back to that 1980s neon nightlight vibe. Now, this is a thing Ty West has done really effectively in each of his films. If you remember, X had that slightly desaturated, grainy color palette that gave it that vintage film stock vibe from the 1970s. Pearl, on the other hand, was abundant with color, given this intensely saturated feel, both in the post production of how they made the actual scenes look, but also in the wardrobe choices that they had the characters wearing. Now, Maxine creates its very own, very signature look to stand out in this trilogy. And I love how each film has that different look and feel to it. I would also add that the cinematography overall felt very strong in this movie. It even gave us that similar opening shot where they used the doors as frames of the scene. And this was used in X, this was used in Pearl, and it's once again used in the intro of Maxine. And there was a great mix of shots, including several long panning scenes that were done extremely extremely well in this movie. My only critique when it comes to the visuals are a few scenes were shot so darkly that it became much harder to track what was actually happening. And I would say this gets reinforced in the third act, where there's a scene that not only is it shot very darkly, but there's so many cuts in the scene that it's just hard to follow what is happening in the scene very well. Thoughts on the sound design? Moving into sound design, the sound design was actually, I thought, really effective. It brings the audience into the film. I love when sounds are so rich that it really breaks that fourth wall and makes the audience feel like they're actually sitting there or standing there in the scene itself. And I think Maxine had really good sound design that helped bring and draw the audience in. Uh, for the most part, the acting was one of the best parts of the movie. Kevin Bacon's character in particular was extremely well played. He was so highly entertaining how he portrayed his character. I would also say the same for Giancarlo Esposito, who is not featured as much in the movie. And the thing about that is he's so flawless in his character, which when has Giancarlo Esposito not been flawless in a character? But it just leaves you wanting so much more of him and his character. I mean, his character could and possibly should have his own spin-off movie. And for what you learn about this character, the little bits you learn about this character, you actually would be really interested to see a spin-off just on his character alone. And he played it so perfectly. And lastly, you have Mia Goth. And, honestly, all hail Mia Goth. She pulled the hat trick in this third leading role of the Ty West trilogy, playing both Maxine and Pearl throughout these three movies. And absolutely astonishing performance from Mia Goth. So, truly being heralded as one of the top, if not the top actress in horror today. So absolutely amazing acting job by Mia Goth. Unfortunately, however, all the remaining cast members, so anyone else I did not mention, really were unremarkable. They were and it's not so much, it could be the acting, but really they weren't given a lot to work with. Most of the characters are unremarkable, they're cliche, they're one note, they're tropes, and they don't really serve any purpose except to further the plot of the movie for the characters that I did mention. Um, and this kind of opens us up into the story and script itself. And this was probably the weakest component of this film. The first big issue with the script is that, with one exception, not a single one of the victims of the film was ever given any time to build up their identity before they were killed off. And by the way, all the kills for the most part are done off screen, with the exception of maybe one. Off screen. Doesn't happen. You don't see it. Not a single kill is really ever done on screen. Now, not that the audience is needing to be subjected to gore for the sake of gore, but when you have a lack of character development and all the characters are one note and cliche, and you only give the characters a couple seconds with very minimal dialogue to indicate really who they are, and then when you kill them off screen, it doesn't really help the audience care at all about the victims. The audience even had to do a double take on some of the victims because of how quick the post-mortem scenes were. It's like, "Oh, was that one person? Yeah, I guess it was. They only had about 2 seconds, so okay, moving on." In fact, a lot of the events that would typically be shown in a film to build tension or to raise the stakes or to even scare the audience are never shown in this movie. And this really eradicates any connection that the audience could have to any of the characters or the depth or the gravity of the situation that the main character Maxine is facing. Really, not a lot actually ends up happening on screen during the 1 hour and 41-minute runtime of this film. And this kind of pulls us into this final reveal of the main villain, and it's anything but a reveal. And not to give any spoilers, but this is telegraphed, and this telegraphing is reinforced the entire movie. And if you've seen X, and if you watch the first 5 seconds of Maxine, you know where the movie is headed. Nothing in this movie was a surprise. Nothing was shocking. Nothing was ever suspenseful because nothing ever really seemed at risk. At no point was the audience ever scared or caught off guard or held in suspense throughout the entirety of this movie. And that seems peculiar for a horror film, not to have anything actually suspenseful or frightening in the movie. And but by the time you're in the final act, the audience is ready for the film to hurry up and wrap up because, well, there's just not really any climax for the characters. Pardon the pun. So now let's move into the editing. And I personally, as a moviegoer, I find it very frustrating when certain edits are done. And in my opinion, I think these edits were done after maybe a tester or a test screening was done of this film to add in scenes that I believe insults the audience's intelligence and ability to pay attention. And these include specifically flashbacks or references to previous scenes in this movie or scenes in the other movies in this trilogy. And it really kind of spoils any suspense or reveal that ends up being shown later in the movie. I think these edits are disrespectful to an audience, and it insinuates that moviegoers are either not paying attention or just not smart enough to connect the dots, which, by the way, audience members want that ability. We want to be tested. We want to be able to connect the dots and try to figure things out as we're watching a suspense film. That's one of the reasons we go and see movies like this. So, does this ruin the film? Yes and no. I think the lack of character development really, really hurts Maxine. But the visuals, as I said, are absolutely stunning, and Mia Goth's performance is outstanding. It's worthy of note. And on top of that, there are several really fun moments in this movie where the whole audience, you could feel the energy of the audience really getting into certain scenes of the movie. So, how does this kind of score up? Well, when you look at these 7 different categories, visuals, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Sound, an 8 out of 10. Acting, an 8 out of 10. Directing, I'm going to knock it down to a 7 out of 10 simply because of the concerns I had with the lack of character development, how things were shown on screen versus off screen. I think some of that is an editing decision. I think some of that is a directorial decision. Editing, I'm going to drop it down to a 6 out of 10. Story is a 6 out of 10 as well. But entertainment, I do think it gets a little bit of a bump. Like I said, there are a lot of fun scenes. So entertainment, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. This gives it a total score of 50 out of a total possible of 70. So that's a 71%, folks. It's a fun movie. It's a decent movie. But I don't think it serves its job as a horror film or as a suspense film. So I would recommend waiting till video. I don't think there's anything in particular like that you need to see this on the big screen. This for me is, hey, I'm gonna catch it on streaming when it lands on streaming. But I might watch it while I'm doing something else on my phone because there's nothing that's going to be shown that is going to that I'm going to miss if I'm not fully paying attention. So that's my review. Let me know what you thought of the review. But also, I'm curious if you like the breakdown and how we're looking at these 7 different categories, because I want these videos to be beneficial to you as fellow moviegoers, as fellow creatives. Do you like these topics? Or are there other certain categories or areas of the film you want me looking into in upcoming movies? And like I said, if there are any movies you want me to review coming out, let me know. Thank you so much, so much for tuning into this. Really appreciate your views, appreciate your subscriptions, appreciate you liking this video, sharing it with a friend. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you in the next movie. Take care.